Nigeria's meat and dairy industry, which is largely driven by import and open grazing of cattle, has become a creeping forest of thorns. Community after community raised the alarm that herders have become an expanding weed of murderous thorns, while economists complain of the huge sums of foreign exchange expended on what our herders can conveniently produce locally. The missing link is how Nigeria can harness the potentials of local herders to solve the conflict the present method creates and possibly eliminate importation. Financial experts estimate that Nigeria needs to invest at least $3 billion into its meat and dairy industry in terms of land acquisition, irrigation, and herder organization to make a meaningful impact on the industry. Similarly, Nigeria is estimated to need over $4 billion to modernize its cotton and textile industry and another $15 to $20 billion to make any meaningful change to its electricity industry.
That's why today you can see that the government of the day are borrowing money to solve problems here and there.
These estimates do not take account of the resources required to build a modern railway network across the country, create a world-class marine transportation, improve health, education, and security. These needs seem to justify the policy of the present federal government to borrow as much as it can to meet the shortfall in the nation's resources. But for a nation which was once trapped in a debt burden that made servicing of the debts a constant reason for not meeting each year's budgetary expectation, the mere mention of borrowing ticks off a violent national debate.
Reiterated its call, which seemed to have fallen on deaf ears, for the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission to urgently send the revised revenue allocation formula to Mr. President for onward transmission to the National Assembly for enactment, such that more resources are made available to state and local governments where ordinary Nigerians reside. PDP governors frowned at the rising and seemingly uncontrollable debt profile of Nigeria, with over 80% of normal appropriation at the national level spent on debt servicing. All the gains of the PDP government under Olusegun Obasanjo, PCFR, where Nigeria exited its foreign debt obligations, has been destroyed. Borrowing for frivolous items, such as funding of the Nigerian Television Authority, is scandalous. Money should only be borrowed for productive purposes, as Nigeria's current debt of over 36 trillion naira is becoming clearly unsustainable relative to our earnings and GDP. We should not saddle incoming generations with undue debt burden. The borrowing spree of the APC administration, if unchecked, will certainly lead Nigeria into avoidable bankruptcy.
The Kebbi State Governor Abubakar Atiku Bagudu told Signature Show that it is throwing insufficient funds at huge financial challenges that is creating Nigeria's debt trap. He reasoned that if Nigeria borrowed a minimum of $100 billion, the country can productively and rewardingly invest in critical sectors that can pay the loans and leave the country with considerable infrastructure and economic profit.
The United States of America, one country, is indebted to the tune of $27 trillion. $27 trillion. 1% of 27 trillion is $270 billion. Nigeria is indebted to the tune of about $89 billion, less than 0.5%. America has less than twice the population of Nigeria. So that tells you we are putting too little money. As I said to you earlier, we are trying to solve $1 trillion problem with $1 million, and it won't work. We need to change our mindset about borrowing. We need quantums of money vastly in excess of what we are investing now, and therefore we must go out there collectively, government, our intellectual assets, to tell the world that we need better and more equitable access to the world capital market.
Experts have been weighing in on this issue to help the country find a mean that creates a pathway to borrowing but not make the nation insolvent.
You have a government that the capital expenditure is very little, about 30%. So no economy in the world ever develops by that kind of statistics. And you are borrowing to finance infrastructure that will maybe have a residual effect that will not be able, at least, to generate the fund that will be able to make you repay the debts. It's an economic mourning situation. We are over-borrowing.
It must be credit worthy, even for you to be able to borrow money. If you are not credit worthy, no banks, no country will want to support you or even borrow you money. Even as big as America, they still borrow. America borrow money even from China. So when you borrow for a cause, for a reason. But you must be able to have means and ways of repayment.
There is no doubt that resolving the question of to borrow or not to borrow and the level of accountability in the application of borrowed funds remain at the heart of Nigeria's progress to a modernized society. It will also help address the challenge of developing and harnessing the nation's resources like solid minerals, products of scientific research, and other intellectual properties, all of which make up the nation's wealth. The National Assembly has the onerous task of raising the current debate beyond the present partisan level into a matter to be carefully considered as the principle to guide the nation's borrowing policy.